So listen, let's begin with the budget, obviously, because you have now these high-profile Canadians, a former Bank of Canada governor, two former Liberal finance ministers, essentially joining in on the criticism that we're hearing from the Conservative Party on this budget. How problematic is that for the government, Susan, as they try to sell this budget to Canadians?
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I hope you all had a great weekend. In regards to today's video, we're going to be checking in on our favorite Liberals, Chrystia Freeland, as well as a little bit of Justin since their budget announcement last week. Now, after the announcement, Freeland was doing some press, and one of the interviews she did was with Global News. Now, during that interview, Freeland gave her typical non-answer answers, but she also addressed some of the criticism and critiques that she's been getting from individuals in regards to the budget. Now, I will preface that the interview is a little bit noisy since it was done in the lobby where other media was happening, but I want you to try to listen to what she says, even though I know it's painful to listen to her.
With me now is the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister, Chrystia Freeland. Let's start with the increase in capital gains tax. I believe you were saying it will affect 0.1% of Canadians, the very wealthy. Can you explain exactly who will pay more, who you're targeting? Is it going to include, for example, someone's elderly aunt who is thinking of selling the family cottage?
Well, let me start with who is excluded, because that is the vast majority of Canadians. More than 99% of Canadians will not pay as individuals a higher rate of capital gains, and I just want to be sure people understand that. So the most important thing, the biggest asset most Canadians own is their home. Our homes are all fully excluded from capital gains taxation. That continues to be the case. The second thing which we are bringing in is a new tier. And this tier means that the first $250,000 of a capital gain in every single year that a Canadian might enjoy is taxed at the current rate of a 50% inclusion. So you actually only pay any tax at all on 50% of it. And it's because of that really narrow focus, which is entirely intentional, that this additional tax is really focused on those at the very top, on people who can afford to pay a little bit more to make the investments that our country really needs, that especially young Canadians really need.
So I'm not exactly clear on who that is then, and you know that the business community is already saying that by doing this it's sending the wrong message for a country that has a big problem with productivity.
Now at this point, I shouldn't be that surprised that she chose to answer the question by not answering the question, which was very straightforward. Who will be affected by the capital gains tax? And instead of being honest about it, she decides to go the other way and say who isn't affected, which from a lot of the experts out there and non-experts, people are saying that that's not the case. A lot of middle-class individuals are going to be affected by this come June when it gets implemented. And from now till then, you're going to see a lot of people trying to sell off their extra assets because they don't want to get hit by this.
With regard to the capital gains tax increase, which is substantial and will not be hurting the richest of the rich, as many small business groups and journalists now, it's taken a couple of days for the dust to settle on this. They're pointing out, hey, you're really giving a sock in the jaw to a lot of small business people, entrepreneurs, artisans who, they don't get a government pension. They might have bought a triplex, live in one of them, rent out the other two. All of a sudden, they're going to get hit with a whopping increase in their capital gains, a 33% increase in what has to be brought into income. People are finally starting to notice that and know it's not Trudeau going after the super rich. He's going after super ordinary Canadians, and they're starting to see it.
And also just average Canadians, if you have a cottage or any property or anything like that, I mean, if you want to sell, you'll be paying for that as well, or through inheritance.
Exactly. And even if you give it to your kids, it's a deemed disposition, and you're still hit with the full whack of this new capital gains tax. So I don't know where Freeland got her number. She said it's 0.14. That's pretty specific percent of Canadians who are going to be hit by this. But I guess it was some sort of number put together by the gnomes in the finance department saying, oh, well, we have this many last year and therefore it translates to this percentage of the population. But look, Roger, I was talking yesterday to somebody who's been in real estate for 25 years. In the area where I am, there are indeed a lot of cottages and a lot of triplexes and you know, four unit buildings. And she was saying, look, over the next 9 weeks, it's going to be total chaos because people are going to start unloading because this new massive tax increase that Trudeau has brought in on the middle class is only going to kick in on June 25th. So people are going to be unloading properties between now and then. And who's going to be soaking up those properties? People who have lots of cash. Maybe the rich are the ones who are benefiting from Trudeau's thing. And he's still trying to sell this as him standing up to the wealthy and Poilievre defending them. Poilievre's doing nothing of the kind. He's sticking to his basic messages about the cost of living, housing, inflation, groceries, and the like. He's not taking the bait that Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland ham-fistedly try to put out there for him.
Now listen, say what you want about Tom Mulcair, love him or hate him, I get it, but he's not a finance guy. He's the former leader of the NDP, and even he can see the writing on the wall when it comes to the budget. But as Donna Friesen, the host of Global News there, pushes back on Freeland in regards to her critics, this is again what she had to say about them.
We're running out of time. I just wanted to raise one thing with you. You know, your critics say that the Liberals are good at addition, not so good at subtraction. And that right now the cost of servicing the debt in Canada is $46 billion in 2023-24. That's more than, I think, what is spent on the Canada Health Transfer. Your critics say the spending measures on top of that are reckless. What do you say to them?
Well, I say actually that is economically illiterate.
Now, this woman is an absolute piece of work. I want you to take a look at this face right here. As she just said, her critics are economically illiterate. Yet the criticism is coming from economists, business owners, the parliamentary budget officer, the other premiers, also the former governor of the Bank of Canada, who said that this would have been the worst budget in the last 40 years, which he was right on, as well as two previous Liberal MPs who were the finance minister, one that was her predecessor, and then John Manley, who also was interviewed, and this is what he had to say.
The minister's justification for this was slightly, I'd say, misleading because the rate of tax on capital gains is lower than the rate on ordinary income. But of course, all of the rates are progressive. And once you get to, ordinary income of roughly $200,000 per year, you're paying a lot more. In province of Ontario, you're paying almost 54% of your incremental income in tax. And if you look at the analysis of who's paying the tax, the more people that are earning more are paying a lot more. They're paying a lot higher rates and they're paying a lot more money. So that's why it's very hard to go down this road of saying, well, what's fair? What's the right amount? The finance minister for Louis XIV in France once said that the art of taxation was to extract the largest number of feathers from the goose with the least amount of complaint from the goose's beak. And there's a point at which, when the government becomes the senior partner in an individual's economic relationship, then you discourage them from working. You may encourage them to move elsewhere. They are mobile. And you end up getting less revenue, not more. So my fear in this, you remember, Michael, I was in the Liberal government in the 1990s. We actually brought that inclusion rate back down to 50% from 66 2/3%. The reason was it wasn't raising much money. And I think if you go back to the numbers, you'll see that at 50%, it actually raised more money than it did at 66 2/3%. Why? Because people would just sit on their assets. Why sell it? The government's going to take too much. And that's not the kind of intervention in the economy that's healthy. So I think it's a mistake.
Quickly running out of time, but I do want to ask you, in the less than 1 minute I have, the inclusion rate on capital gains is one thing. The other criticism this government is facing is the fact that it's laid out no path to balance. Does that still matter, do you think?
Well, I think it matters, and I'll give you just two numbers since we're short on time. One is government spending has doubled compared to the last year of the Harper government. And not only that, the carrying charges on our debt have also doubled, so that we're now paying as much interest on debt as the government is generating from GST revenue. Those are both worrying things because eventually the piper calls the tune and you will have to make some cuts. That's what we went through in the 90s. It was unpleasant and it was difficult. Canadians largely supported it, but you don't want to get to that.
Yet the way this government is going, that's what it's going to come down to, especially when we have Justin Trudeau coming out and saying stuff like this when all the premiers, all 13, have reached out and said that this is a terrible budget.
In a recent letter, all 13 premiers accuse Ottawa of encroaching on their jurisdiction, with plans to spend billions more on housing, pharmacare, and a new dental program. Trudeau says he's only spending more because premiers aren't doing enough.
I'd always rather work with provinces, but if we have to, I will go around them and be there for Canadians.
And there you have it, folks. Straight from our fearless leader himself, the dictator. Because who cares about democracy, right? 13 out of 13 premiers reach out to you. Who cares? Majority of Canadians are the ones that are going to suffer. Who cares? Justin Trudeau will do what he wants to do. He'll circumvent however which way he wants because he knows best, right? As he said from the very start of this whole campaign.
Sunny ways, my friends. Sunny ways.
But hey, this is just my opinion. I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about this whole situation. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.